You're gonna edit this out anyway. Go ahead.
This is going all over the place. I had a whole planned idea of how to tie all together,
and
but
you're taking forever to get to it. This is a theoretical discussion. You gotta enumerate. You gotta put in all.
Numerate.
You gotta put in all the factors. All right.
Right.
Thank you, Alex.
You know what?
Nice. It looks like Scooby-Doo. The Scooby-Doo was Ghostface. So
Okay.
why have you brought us here, Al?
So Scream 6 is coming out, or came out actually. We didn't see it yet.
Right.
But-
Total disclosure, we're staying off the internet because you know how people are today. Oh, I saw the new Scream movie.
It's just like,
God
yeah,
damn it, Will.
we're off the internet, totally.
We're off the internet.
We're off the internet.
Yeah. All right,
No.
put that there.
So what happened was, I have a theory that I've never seen discussed. That's not about Scream 6, but about, in general, the Scream series.
The entire franchise?
Yes.
Oh, God.
Now, Will, I know you're not... You don't know much about Scream. Let's get Will's opinion. What do you know about Scream? Give us your opinion about in general.
Isn't it a ripoff of like Halloween?
Alright, so spoilers for the entire Scream series. There's one topic that I've thought about that I haven't seen being discussed in a theory at all, and for all I know, it might be easily debunked and poked holes in, and whatever it may be, but I want to still try to put together a theory that might hold some merit later on. And that's, did Gale Weathers' book, The Woodsboro Murders, which was then adapted into the Stab movies, inspire the future antagonists of Scream? Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that because of the movies, that's why the murders happened. But let's talk about Gale first. In later films, she's seen to be more caring and close to other characters, although this doesn't really happen until the end of Scream 2. In the first Scream, after the death of Maureen Prescott, she writes a book to come in defense of Cotton Weary. So, when the other murders happen, she comes to report, clear Cotton's name, possibly interview Sidney, and to put in her own words,
I know. That's why we need proof. If I'm right about this, I could save a man's life. Do you know what that could do for my book sales?
ouch. The majority of the film, Gale is fixated on her book sales, while also being the first to get the story. And while also discussing Scream 2, another sign is that in the beginning of the movie, Gale gets a call, possibly from her agent, saying how the executives want to pull the Stab movie after the deaths that happened at the theater. To which again she replies,
They're threatening to what? Are you kidding me? It'd be stupid to pull this movie. All this free press, they're gonna have huge numbers this weekend. It'll break box office records.
So why does this matter? Well, we can tell from the first two movies that Gale's determination to get the story and her tactics to do so angers a lot of people, Sidney being one. That, and almost a tabloid-type spectacle, led to her to writing a book about the murders committed by Billy and Stu, and essentially less than a year after it happens. Now, her being both a reporter and a survivor in the first killing spree, while also having a fling with the Deputy Sheriff Dewey. Now, I know in later films they got together and eventually broke up, but I would honestly see the first film as her just flirting with him and not even really being too much interested, even to the point where at the end of the Scream movie when Dewey survives and is carried off in the ambulance, Gale stays behind, does the news report of the crime that just happened, while in Scream 2, she goes with him in the ambulance right afterwards. We even see in the beginning of Scream 2 how she essentially kind of mocked Dewey in the book. She'd have a lot more access than the other reporters would have gotten, knowing information not available to the public as well, on both the victims and killers.
And had their parents divorced, yeah.
And the mom
And their parents got divorced. So
Number
Billy,
two,
when
Billy's
Billy's mom
Sydney
came back, that's like the perfect
for
sequel.
his parents
That's, like,
divorcing.
awesome.
Well, and
Stu
the
was
best
his
thing
lap
is in
dog.
Scream 2,
Awesome.
and
There's
Mickey
no
was
scenes
scenes with
he
Sidney.
literally
had
had
no
no
reason
reason
to
to
hide
hide
with. He
the
was
first
basically
killer.
their stew. But then this new killer
Four
is
was
also
about
jealous of this success.
making
but then
a
these new
remake
killers are also fans who hate the new
first
series
murder
and want to make
through
their own.
the new
It's
characters.
like
I mean,
Scream 5
That's what makes
was
it really,
a
really
requel,
scary
a
about
reboot
Stu,
sequel
though.
where they wanted to do the killings
Or Charlie,
right
because it was
because
like, they
the
were
stat
upset,
they
were
chose
obsessed with
they're
the jail.
literally
In the
pissed
first
off
one,
movie
Billy
fans.
was Sidney's boyfriend. Number two,
He was
Billy's
pulling
mom
all the
came
strings.
back. That's like the perfect
Stu was
sequel.
just there for the
That's, like,
ride.
awesome.
Well, going off of what you heard me say and Mikey say, what do you think about the Scream series? As an outsider looking in, give your honest opinion to the camera.
I'm so lost, and I'm going to have to watch the series on my own.
Good for you.
Right.
At least you admit it.
So in writing the book, The Woodsboro Murders, she's giving all the information on how it was all done, with the exception of the costume. That was given out before even Gale reported it.
They get this costume from.
It literally, the whole point of Scream 1 was it's a random costume at a store.
It's just a random.
No, it
you
wasn't.
Could go to any costume
Yeah.
store.
That was the whole point.
Yeah.
In Scream 1, they're saying
That's
it's
what
like,
makes Scream such a great horror movie, because it's like Scream could be anyone that you
it's
know
a murder mystery.
in a cheap costume.
Yeah, but don't you think after the first movie that they would have just banned that from
Yes.
being sold at a store?
Yes, but they didn't.
In the Scream universe, Ghostface is a horror icon to them as well. Yes, it's based off of terrible, gruesome murders, but
It's psychotic.
It is.
what is discussed is the killer's love of horror movies, the voice changer, the calls made, what was said in those calls to the victims, and what their plans were behind them. All of this, and the order of the deaths, which was then adapted in the Stab movie we see in Scream 2. And if you watch Scream 5, when they're watching the Stab on camera with the Stab Randy, it's literally a shot for shot for Scream 1, and if you remember, in Scream 1, Gale was recording the party. She literally has Randy's speech about what not to do in horror films. She probably took all that footage from Scream 1 and made that into scenes in her book to use for a movie. We also see the characters who read her book and liked it, one being Debbie Salt, while an act of revenge mainly being towards Sydney. Spoilers, Debbie, who turns out to be Mrs. Loomis. It could also be assumed that Gale was her target as well, for glamorizing the death of her son, making him into a horror villain. Even the Scream 2 Ghostface was doing a copycat killing spree initially, with the names of the victims being similar to the ones that happened in Woodsboro. Now, her book inspired the Stab franchise, and since starting with Scream 2, it has been a central plot through all the Scream movies since, at least so far. Future antagonists want to make their own Stab movie, or reboot it, requel it themselves in their respective Scream movie, even taking inspiration from the rules established in Stab.
Alright, so no, seriously though, that's your theory. Gale's book indirectly
Influence the killer.
Influence the killer.
Because every film post Scream 2 still relies on, I need a voice changer, I gotta base off horror films. Let's face it, why didn't Rowan use a different costume? Why is it always this costume? Why? If we're going off of it doesn't matter, then why even follow the Woodsboro murders killings? Why not get like a Jason mask? Why go back to a Ghostface mask again? Gale has shown remorse of even writing the books and wanting her next book to be about Dewey. And going off a lot of the Scream fandom pages, the movies post-Stab 3 are fictional, as Sydney threatened to sue the studio. The gap between Scream 3 to 4 shows that several Stab movies were made with mixed fan reaction. Again, they were still based off Gale's books, but they're more books on events that didn't even happen. But the book she released about the Woodsboro murders, which is Sydney's life in Scream 1, came out less than a year after the murders happened. So now you have a major motion picture where you're the star, you're being betrayed by actors and displaying what just happened in your life.
Like, after experiencing a traumatic event in your life like that, your first instinct is to make a book about it.
This leads to antagonists wanting to make their own Stab movie, most likely to inspire Gale to write a book based off the events. I think to put this in conclusion, when I asked the theory, has Gale's book inspired the future antagonists? It's like a coin toss. In many ways, it can be meta commentary that even the Scream films address, that movies are not the reason for killers. But my argument is more or less like, in many ways, I think the events of Scream 2 and 3 would have happened irregardless. I think going off the plot of it being a trilogy, Roman established with Billy to do the killings of 96, which in turn led to his mother trying to avenge his death, which he didn't plan for, and he was trying to end it. I think the latter films, 4 and 5, are more influenced by the Stab movies' influence on people in real life, or in the case for Scream. Sort of like how Billy and Stu were inspired by the horror movies that they watched and created their own persona to their killing spree during Scream. I think this is best answered as, of course not, but the Stab movies, which told the events of what happened in Scream, show the future antagonists what to do to replicate those events in Scream. It's one of those things like how in like most horror films, there's no reason why there's killings. They at least give reason to, okay, the Ghostface killer came back because this person's tied with the first killer. But then this new killer is also jealous of this success. But then these new killers...
From what it sounds like, this one character, the reporter, made this book, which all she cared about was getting enough information to write this book.
Mm-hmm.
And the premise of the series is that people bought this book and it was turned into a movie, and it's so popular that people are being influenced to commit heinous crimes indirectly from what she made based off of true events that she experienced or just other characters Sydney experienced.
You vocalized it better than I did. You haven't even watched the films. Anyway, that's all we have for the Scream theory. Mike, any final words?
No, not really. You kind of summed everything up.
Like, comment, and subscribe.